Well, hi everyone. Today we're taking a look at the alternate version of exercise 7-6 on page 342 of the textbook from chapter 7, Reporting and Analyzing Receivables. Today we're going to take a look at another version of the method using account receivables. This one uses the aging of account receivables. So let's take a look at the data. It says Daly Company estimates uncollectible accounts using the allowance method. As of December 31st, it prepared the following aging of account receivables. And all this means is that it took its total account receivables and it broke it up into time periods. Those account receivables that weren't yet past due, those that are 1 to 30 days past due, 31 to 60 days past due, etc. Now, for each of those separate time periods, it estimates what percent of the balances that are past due for that time period that they don't think they'll be able to collect. Typically, the rule of thumb is the longer an account becomes past due, the less likely that you'll collect on it. So you'll see here that Daly is increasing the percent for each of these time periods. As the time periods go further out, the percent that they think that they won't be able to collect increases. The first part says calculate the estimated balance of allowances for doubtful accounts using the aging of account receivable method. So here for this method, we're simply going to take a look at all the different balances that they have, multiply times those estimated percents that we don't think we'll be able to collect to come up for that individual time period, how much of those funds we don't think we'll be able to collect. So for the first one, the $410,000 times 1%, well, we think that out of that amount, we may not be able to collect $4,100. The next time period, 1 day to 30 days, $150,000 times 3%. We think that's $4,500 that we don't think we'll be able to collect. For the next period, 31 to 60 days, the amount of $80,000 times 4%. We think that out of that time period of $80,000 that's due between 31 to 60 days in the future, we don't think we'll be able to collect $3,200. And we finish out the grid for all of the periods, and then we simply total those all up. So out of the entire $700,000 amount, we believe there is $16,200 that we don't think we'll be able to collect. Now, just as we saw in the previous method using the percent of account receivable method, we know that this dollar amount needs to be the ending dollar balance in the allowance for doubtful accounts. What this means real simply is that we think, okay, we have receivables of $700,000. We don't think we'll collect $16,200. So the net between this and this is the amount that we do think we'll be able to collect that will list as an asset on our balance sheet. So moving on then, we'll take the account receivables of $700,000, look at the amount that we want to show as the ending offsetting contra account amount known as the allowance for doubtful accounts of $16,200. And now apply the logic for the rest of the problem. Part B says prepare the adjusted entry to record bad debt expense using the estimate from Part A. Assume the unadjusted balance in the allowance for doubtful accounts is a $1,200 credit. Okay, well this is how we saw to solve the problem for exercise 7.5, so this will be somewhat similar. First step is to determine what the current account balance equals. We know there is a beginning amount of $1,200. That's the credit amount that they show us. Second step, determine what the current account balance should be. Well, we know per the aging that we want it to be $16,200. So then step 3 is to record an adjusted entry to get from step 1 to step 2. We're going to be applying that plug number. So the plug number is 15,000. We know to go from the target balance of 16,200 from what we started with of 1,200, we need another credit to the allowance account for 15,000. So the allowance account gets credited then for 15,000, and the balance goes into bad debt expense for that period also of 15,000. So we'll go ahead and put up the bad debt expense account to show that that gets to $15,000, and we have both of our T accounts updated. Let's take a look at how the balance sheet would be shown for this particular company. They would have the account receivables of $700,000, take out that allowance amount for $16,200, and we would show on their balance sheet account receivables net of $683,800. On the income statement, bad debt expense of $15,000 is the amount that would be shown. Let's take a look at Part C, where it says prepare the adjusted entry to record bad debt expense using the estimate from Part A. Assume the unadjusted balance in the allowance for doubtful accounts this time is a $500 debit. So instead of having that credit balance that we just saw, now we're going to have a debit balance. The steps become similar though. First, determine what the current account balance equals. We know that we have a $500 beginning balance. We want that $16,200 target amount because that's what we came up with per the aging. So step 3 is to record an adjusted entry to get from step 1 to step 2, which means that we need to plug in $16,700 to go from a $500 debit to an ending credit of $16,200. Well, that's going to take a credit of $16,700. So therefore, the allowance for doubtful accounts receives a credit for $16,700, and we plug bad debt expense for the period for $16,700. So bad debt expense becomes $16,700. And then to show the balance sheet representation and how the income statement would appear, we have our account receivables of $700,000. Notice the allowance is that exact same amount that we previously calculated. That is the target amount because that's the percent that we determined from the aging. So the allowance has to have a $16,200 amount, just like we saw on the previous step. The previous slide for Part B. The only thing that's changed from B to C is that plug, how much bad debt expense was for the period. So now bad debt expense, because we have a beginning debit balance, bad debt expense is a little bit higher. It's $500 higher at $16,700.